Tonight's episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. Algonquin Outfitters, with 5 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Salis Marine, keeping you safe on the water since 1999. Ostrom Outdoors, custom fit canoe packs and barrel harnesses. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. Well, happy Tuesday evening, and welcome back to another episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show, a show that's going to bring you a lot closer to the great outdoors. My name is Dennis, also known as CANOEHOUND, and if this is your first time tuning into the show, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence tonight. You tuned in for a great show, and we're going to have some fun tonight. But before we get on with that, I have to start off tonight with a little bit of some somber news. On October 7th, I lost a good YouTube friend of mine, somebody who I've known for quite a few years here on this platform. This gentleman, he went by the name of Sty North. Many of you may be familiar with him. Many of you may not be familiar with him. But Sty was actually... He was pretty instrumental in me getting a start here with CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show. Over the years, there was a group of us, just a quick background, but over the years, there's a bunch of us who essentially, we did live streaming, chit-chats, talking back and forth. And Sty had a number of different live stream shows that he put together where he would tell stories and accounts of his life and lesson stories and bushcraft stories and all kinds of things. And he brought together this community. And I told him one day, I said, you know what, I'd love to. I've always had this idea of putting together a show where I could actually interview YouTube personalities and bring to light all kinds of stuff that, us as backcountry adventurers, enjoy doing. And Sty said, well, why don't you do it? He says, go for it. He says, I bet you you could build a community around that. And 5 seasons later, here we are. We've got a community that we built around this. Well, Sty announced about, under a year ago that he was suffering cancer in around a year ago and some esophagus type of cancer. And, well, eventually the diagnosis got worse and worse. And last week he lost his life. So in tribute to Sty, tonight's show is dedicated in his honor. And you know what, Sty? Gonna miss you, buddy. I really appreciated all you've done for me, all the good times and chats that we've had. Never met you personally. Had the opportunity a couple times and just never come into fruition. But yeah, man, gonna miss you. And thank you for that, all that you've done. So Sty, rest in peace, my friend.
This is Sty North telling you, keep the adventures alive. And now on with the show.
Yes. Okay. Moving on. Let's move on. If you missed last week's show, we had a really good show. We featured best-selling author and Canadian explorer Adam Schultz, and it was the virtual book launch of his newest book, Where the Falcon Flies. We had a really good chat. It was a good time. He's currently doing a book signing tour and presentation on his 3,400 kilometer Odyssey. So if you get the opportunity to see Adam, or if you get a chance to pick up one of his books, you know what? This book is actually a really good read. If you go back into last week's show, because perhaps you missed it, it's available in our past episodes playlist. And go back there and check it out. You'll find all kinds of real cool things, and you'll be intrigued to read this book because it's a really good read. There was somebody, one of my subscribers had mentioned that in one of his posts that she thought that he gave away all the secrets of the book. And then she picked up a book and she's been reading it. And she said that, you know what, there's so much more to the book than what he spoke of. So, you know what, it's a really good opportunity. Be sure to pick up a copy and give it a good read. Support a Canadian author and explorer at the same time. Let's see here. Next week, be sure to tune in as we are going to be joined by James Olaf from Wild Ontario News on Instagram and as a podcast. He's been making a real good splash here on YouTube of late, and he talks about all different types of things going on in Ontario, wildlife, even green belt issues and all these other things. And we're going to bring him onto the show. We're going to find out a little bit more about him to build some interest. He's a really interesting guy. He explains everything right to the point. He doesn't hold any punches when it comes to it. So by all means, make sure you tune in next Tuesday evening, and we'll be joined by James Olofs, Alofs. There we go. So we'll do that. Just wanted to thank really quickly Lori and also Jay and Sherry for your coffee contributions for tonight's show. Come on, everybody, join me. Let's take a dip. All right. If anybody's ever interested in buying a coffee and or helping out with the dip, by all means, you could do so at buymeacoffee.com/CanoeHound Adventures. That's going across, or just CanoeHound. Yes. And then, of course, you know what? We do have a few channel members who are actually celebrating milestones. We got Kildare Survivals celebrating 3 years as a channel member. Thank you very much for your support there. And Canoetropia, thank you very much for your contributions as well. Isn't this guy a canoeer? And he has the name Canoe. He spoke to me about his name, and what a great name. What a great name. So Canoe, thank you very much if you're in the chat. Not sure if you are or not, but thank you very much for your support as well. And then, of course, we have all of our channel members drifting across the bottom of the screen there. You might notice that the very first name that was on that list was a longtime supporter. And as I mentioned earlier, the person who really pushed me on to do this show, good old Sty North. So he'll be kind of an honorary channel member for life, as far as I'm concerned. Yes. So we will let that continue to roll across the board. While we have that rolling across the board, just a bunch of happy birthday announcements to get across. We have Sherry from Beauty of the Backcountry is celebrating her 19th birthday again. 19th birthday for Sherry. Let's see here. We got Rob from Rob in the Outside. Happy birthday to you. We have Sean Rowley from Paddling Adventures Radio, who I believe is up around Temagami up around Lake Superior somewhere paddling right now. So if he sees this show, happy birthday to you. And I think Johnny from Keel Quest, I believe he is celebrating a birthday. And if it's not Johnny, it's Colleen. It come up on my YouTube feed, and I had to get mentioned in there. But one of them two are celebrating a birthday. So if you happen to be in the chat right now, let us know whose birthday it is, and we'll throw you a couple pieces of birthday cake. Let's see. And you know what? I have to also wish a happy birthday this coming week to my lovely wife, Mrs. Canoehound. Cheryl is having a birthday this week, and you know what, honey? Thank you very much for your support and for letting me play and do this kind of stuff. Got a great weekend planned with you. Anyways, so happy birthday to everybody, and you know what? If you have a birthday wish, anniversary wish, any well wishes for anybody, please do send them my way. You can send them over to me at canoehound@gmail.com, and I would be more than happy to get those things posted for you. And share the love, right? Let's see here. That's probably about it. You know what? If you have any special guests or topics you'd like to see on the show, this is the magic email address right here. At any time, if you ever need to reach out to me, canoehound@gmail.com. I get back to everybody that sends me an email. So that is my promise to you. Unless you're a spam emailer, then forget that. And let's see. We have an interesting show tonight. It's going to be very interactive, and this means being interactive that you can ask questions. If you have questions, please put your question in the chat, which is over there, and make sure you put their word question, and then I'm going to star them. I'm going to mark them here on my chat list, and then we'll get to some of the questions a little later on. And after 8 o'clock, after our commercial break, we will also give you the opportunity to come on up and ask a question. Come on up and meet tonight's guest. Something, you know what, if you watch the show alone, might be a great thrill for you. Anyways, without further ado, let's get on to tonight's topic or guest. Tonight's guest was recently a contestant on the History Channel's Alone series, season number 10. He endured over 64 days in the wilds of North Saskatchewan. He overcame many dire situations during his stay, including some pretty nasty health stuff that we'll actually talk about. Please welcome to the live stream. We have Wyatt Black. Wyatt, how you doing, man?
Good, you, Dennis?
Hey, man, that hat is synonymous with you. Every time I see a picture of you in social media or something, that's your go-to, right?
Me and Kate are. They said that it's like they're part of us. We're famous for our hats, if you want to say.
Famous for you. You're not hiding like a thin hairline or anything, are you?
Oh, no, well, I've still got it. There's most of it anyway. But it keeps the rain off, and I got big ears, so it keeps the sun off them in the summer. And
yeah. That's like my Tilly hat when I go canoeing. Hey, got to cover the ears. They get all crispy on top with this hairline anymore. So, yeah, that happens to us when we start. When we're over 40.
Right.
And I'm sure a lot of guys over there in the chat could attest to that as well. Hey, man, I was a real fan on Alone. I watched every season. Season 10 did not disappoint. You and the whole crew that were out there for 64 plus days in Alan's case. You know what, man? I applaud you. You did awesome out there, and we're hoping to hear some stories that Alone doesn't show you in their script. So hopefully you're all prepared for that.
Yeah, they had over 700 hours of video of me, so there's
700 hours.
Yeah.
Man, I hate editing like a trip video.
Oh yeah, that's it.
That's cool. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who is Wyatt Black?
Proud father. I own a small business here in Muskoka. I've had a bunch of guys working for me a long time. My son's he ran the business while I was gone. Grew up on Lake of Bays in Dorset. When I was 9 years old, my parents bought a marina there, and from that, I grew up just outside of Stainer for the first 9 years. My grandfather and that, I was out there all the time and shooting 22s and everything since I could walk, and going fishing in the local gravel pits with Dad and Uncle David and what have you, my brother. And going to Dorset just opened a whole new world for me. Down there, we didn't have moose. There wasn't many deer around back then, all kinds of things. So, I mainly hunted grouse and white rabbits, and then all of a sudden there's everything and every type of fish you could imagine. I was right on the water, and, there was either a boat or a canoe there, and Algonquin Park was just around the corner. And my dad was an old speckled trout hound, so that's his favorite fish to go chasing. So we spent a lot of time in the canoes, and it's, that's basically me. I got a 20-year-old son and a 22-year-old son, wife, Michelle, and lots of family still around. So we're a pretty tight family, and same with our group of friends, and we spend a lot of time together.
That's good stuff. That's good. You know what? It takes that kind of support to do the kind of stuff that you did. Like, you were gone away for 64 days on this adventure. The fact that, your boys were able to, hold the fort for you business wise, and I'm sure family wise as well. It's great to have that kind of support.
Couldn't have done it without it. And they were all great. I didn't worry one bit about that, because I just have that kind of faith in them. Yeah,
and then of course a wife who was probably sitting at home biting her nails for a vast majority of the time, right? Because you're probably home even before the show has been fully aired. Is that right?
Oh yeah, I got home November. Like, they don't show it. We're at home for about 6 months before they even think about airing it.
Oh, is that right? That long?
Yeah.
Holy cow!
Yeah, it was filmed last. Our drop date was September 15th.
Okay, my birthday. Cool.
Yeah, so I left here. My flight left on September 4th, and I got home like November 29th or 30th or something like that.
Yeah. So you actually spent your birthday out there, because you're on September 14th, right?
Yeah, I woke up to, we launched on the 15th, and Melanie, one of the contestants, woke me up on my birthday with a big mug of hot black coffee and a beautiful birthday card that she'd set up the night before and made in her tent for me. It was just an awesome way to, thanks, Mel. And then the girls from the show, they had we won't call it a birthday cake, but they'd taken a bunch of all their little goodies that they had at Arctic Lodges there. made me a big stack of them and stuck a sparkler in the top of it and sang happy
And you're
birthday.
getting ready to go out there, and you're just like, yeah, man. Right?
Yeah, I was pretty heavy when I went out there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, we'll talk about that in a sec. I just want to throw out there too for anybody in the chat that hasn't watched Alone season 10. There's probably going to be a few spoiler alerts in here, so you handle that how you want to handle it, because there are going to be spoiler alerts, right? So you say, well, let's go before that. Let's go before that. So how did it come about that you ended up being on Alone? Did you apply for this? Did they come seeking you like I've seen they've seeked other people?
They had almost 43,000 people apply this year. I sent my first paper application in, or email application in, on February 11th. And a month or so later, I got another one to fill out another one. And then it was, they wanted to do a phone call, and then it was an hour plus Skype meeting. And then I got onto the 100 people that do the videos. So you do a video submission where you go out and light a bunch of fires, build a shelter, show how you can trap fish, shoot a bow, just basically show them your skills. And there was 100 people do that. And then they put 24 of those into a 5-day virtual boot camp. And that's where they picked the 10. So,
wow, so you really got to go through the ringers for this, right?
Oh yeah, and like boot camp, full psychological evaluations, like they just right through everything.
That's crazy. And you know, to go through all that, and not this isn't to discredit anybody who taps out of the show early, because this some of the stories you're telling me in a green room, this is like some serious stuff, right? And for those that may tap out early for whatever reason it might be, to go through all the steps that you've just mentioned that you have to go through, and then to tap out early, it must be just a testament to this, like, you know, how tough this show it really is being alone.
And you know, the people that over the years that have watched it, it's not because people lack skills. It's the mental fortitude. It consumes you at times. And you know, there's so many things you miss, and so many conveniences that we have in everyday life that are just gone. And they talk about a thing called drop shock, and like all of a sudden it's just like, there you go, you're gone, and there's nothing around you. You have no shelter, you have no food, so get up and go. And that, you know, a lot of people get that shock right off the beginning. And you know, and as every day mounts, I said it on day 20. I was sitting by my campfire having a cup of Labrador tea, looking at a beautiful sunset. And I was talking about all the other participants in season 10. And I said, I watched this show with my brother and my dad and family and friends faithfully ever since it came out. And I was always, why'd they do that? They should have done this. Why didn't they do that? They should have done this and all that. And I said, I'll never be that guy again. And I'm sorry for everybody I ever said that to.
Right? Yeah. Until you're out there in the situation, you know, putting yourself through this hell. We'll call it hell, because that's basically what it is. How do you prepare yourself mentally, knowing that you're going to go into this, and then versus when you get there and you go, wow, it's even worse than what I was thinking?
I don't even know how to answer that. I could not give anybody any advice on how to mentally prepare, other than the fact that know that everything's good at home and believe it. Because the rest is all on you. And like, it's just overwhelming, all the things that go through your brain and what have you. And, you know, nobody wants to quit. That's just the bottom line. So, and, you know, when I did that little happy dance at day 5 for catching that fish, I'm a guy who eats 3 squares a day. I've never known what hunger really is, you know, and that was day 5 that I got that fish. Those were true emotions. I hadn't eaten in 5 days, and I was starving going, and I was like, Yahoo!
Yeah, that reminded me of Kyla Marone when she was out ice fishing.
Exactly.
Kyla's been on the show a couple times. I've had a number of Alone contestants on the show over the last bunch of seasons, And I remember that there when she pulled that trout up through the ice and she just did the happy dance and fell to her knees and was crying. It's like I can understand that. That would be, yeah, it's like
Everything,
going grocery shopping and not getting charged, right?
yeah, everything becomes very intensified. It really, like, every little emotion, people go about, like, there's nowhere to hide. It's you and the truth. I talk about it a lot, and all that we have to deal with. And some do it better than others, and some, like me, had never done it. So there was some pretty overwhelming. And that's the odd time I just shut that camera off and go for a walk, because it was no part of what needed to be on that camera, and that was, you got to take a little bit to yourself out there too. I do suggest that to anybody, and just feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what? If you throw a camera in front of your face the whole time, it's just going to really take away from it too, right? Did you have opportunities, or were there times when the camera really interfered with what your task at hand was?
All kinds. Everybody from every season will talk about how much of a pain in the ass the cameras are. Like, they're just, but it's part of the deal, and we all know there's, like I said, there's no excuses for anything because we're all on the same playing field, and it is what it is.
Yeah. Watching the show, it always seemed as if they have like trail cams set up
Two
at your area to capture
of them.
candid.
The camera people, when you set up your spot, they, at their first visit, they will come. They set them up where at your drop site when they first get there.
Yeah.
And when you finally establish your spot and they come out, they will set them where they want to catch things like shelter fires at night and pine martens crawling around the fireplace and things like that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I often wondered that if that was something that they set up or if you set that up yourself.
Yeah, and
right?
they're set up by video. They moved them a couple times.
Mhm.
They that's where they catch us going out for a leak or whatever in the middle of the night. And Melanie's first scene, I think it was her coming out of her tent and squatting for a pee in front of the trail camera, forgetting it was there. So.
Oops.
Yeah, exactly.
So
and then there's
no, go ahead.
And then there's guys like me who are just running around naked all the time anyway. So.
They'll cut it out if they don't want it, or they got the cool little square things they can put.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
That's good.
Oh, man. So the area where they set you down, they do that through some sort of a lottery. You draw numbers. Is that how they do
Yeah,
it?
so we had a little game session where we're all going through the games thing, and then we ended up doing a lineup, and then they worked out which end of the line was going to go first, and they had these absolutely delicious cookies. I can't remember the lady's name that made them, but oh my God, were they good. And they all had a popsicle stick in them, and they had a map there that had 10 pieces of land, and they all had a name on them. And those names were inside the cookies on your popsicle stick. And when the order went through, you just went up and you grabbed the cookie, and whichever one you got, that was your spot.
No kidding, right?
Yeah,
okay.
there's no favoritism of any kind. I do have to give them all the credit in the world for the way they do everything. The people that were there, I don't think would ever cheat, just because that's not the way they are. But even still, they had 3 people go through all your gear the night before or the day before we got dropped, and you were overseeing it. They went through, checked the sleeves of everything, the liners, everything, to make sure you hadn't sewn something in there. Just so thorough, it was unreal.
Mm-hmm.
And then they locked it up. Once they'd inspected it, you packed it back in your pack while they witnessed it, and they just took it right there, and you were gone. And the only thing you had was the clothes that you were wearing the next day and your sleeping bag. So when you got up at 4 o'clock the next morning to start everything, you took your sleeping bag down, They search it, take your boots off, they go through all your stuff again. Okay, you're good. Then you weren't allowed to leave an area, get on the boat, and we're gone.
Wow. And do they take you all out at exactly the same time? Like, is there like 10
Well,
boats?
they do a whole bunch of photo shoots and all the rest of it with everybody in the sunrise and blah blah blah. And then it's another draw to see who gets dropped off at what point, at what time. So they had 2 boats and a plane dropping people off. I got dropped off at 2:30 in the afternoon, and yeah, I was the second last person dropped off. I believe Jody was the last person dropped off that day.
Wow. And did you have an idea, like before the show, or when you went for your boot camp? Did you know the area, like in northern Saskatchewan? What was the name of the lake?
Reindeer Lake.
Reindeer Lake. Yeah. And did you know it was Reindeer Lake that you were going to?
Nope. They didn't tell us until they chose the 10 participants. And
Right.
that day, and all they said it would be was in the Larange region. So they gave us a very vast region of northern Saskatchewan. And it wasn't until we got to Larange that they put us on a plane and took us another hour and a half further up to Reindeer Lake.
Oh man, that's crazy. That's great. So leading up to the show, then what were some of the things you did to prepare yourself for the show?
Just shooting my bow, doing all of it, just going through everything, trying all kinds of different broadheads and stuff, trying different fishing knots, trying to figure out a lure to make, all the tie and gill nets, just ferro rod, doing all kinds of things like that, and making my own sharpening stones and just general bushcrafting, without going to elaborate. I spent more time studying the plant life and the wildlife out there than I did anything. There were so many plants that I wanted to take advantage of, and instead they stuck me on a big rock. So.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, because the main thing is one of the toughest things, obviously, is trying to procure food, right? Trying to find edibles,
Yeah.
stuff that's going to nourish the body and keep you going that extra day.
Yeah, I was really hoping to target the aquatic plants, and pull some tubers and rhizomes and stuff, see if I could get some duck potatoes, things that really put the carbs into you and stuff. And I had none in my area, no bulrushes. Like, it was like all my starches and carbs that I was really counting on and sodium just weren't there.
Yeah. And how far a reach, like, you're allowed, I seen on past episodes, like some guys say they're hiking a mile or 5 miles into the mountain. Do you have boundaries as to how far you can travel?
Yeah. Everybody gets basically 5 square miles. So 3,500 acres. It could be broke up that you get a 5 mile frontage by a 5 mile depth, or you could get 10 miles by 2 miles, whichever.
Yep.
But basically everybody had the same. There was at least a mile in between two areas. So there was never a threat of overlapping. We carried what they call a yellow brick, which is a safety procurement. They got to take some kinds of things. And, it was a thing that went straight back to studio and nowhere else. And they'd come and check because you could text on it. But it was like an old flip up phone where it was, so
Right.
They had all the pre-programmed texts in it, and they come out to do the medical check. They would check it to make sure that nothing else had been done with it. And we were to check in twice a day, once in the morning and once at night. And if you didn't do the check-in, they'd send the cavalry in to make sure everything was okay.
Sure. So you had to make sure. And how often were they doing these medical checks?
Every 10 to 14 days, depending on the weather.
Right. And you had no idea when
they would give you a text the day before saying we'd be coming this day, just to make sure you're going to be at your camp.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's cool. So drop off day, they drop you off. You say they dropped you off on a rock. It wasn't kind of the area that you had hoped for. you kind of touched on it, but what were some, besides food, what were some of the resources that you might have been lacking most in that area?
Soil, clay of any kind. I was rock. I couldn't even pack my shelter or my fire place with any kind of clay. I couldn't find any. I'm trying to mix up stuff. Like, it was so hard to come by. And, you know, the food I could have, you know, I had none of the resources. I had berries, bolete mushrooms, hedgehog mushrooms, you know, and I had lingonberries, crowberries, blueberries, and bearberries. So, or they call it kinnikinnick.
Kinnikinnick, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that's not a lot.
No, Labrador tea. Labrador tea was unbelievable out there. Like, you could farm it for 100 years and never run out. It was so pain to walk through, but delicious to have a cup of tea of every night.
Yeah, is that the only use for Labrador tea? Is there like, you're not going to eat the leaves? It's basically just boiling for a tea, right?
Yeah, you don't even boil it. You just boil your water, and then when it's boiled, you take it off and throw a handful in and let it steep, just like you would a normal tea type thing, and then you drink it. You're only good for, you know, cup 2 tops a day. It can mess with your dreams a bit, and it can give you diarrhea and stuff like that if you drink too much of it. And so, you know, it's better just to proceed with caution with everything.
Yeah, and from what you were saying in the green room, you obviously didn't drink too much of the green, or of the
no
the Labrador tea, because you had a hard time going out there.
Yeah, I was 21 days in one stretch. It was day 22 where I finally had a bowel movement, and it was a 3-hour bowel movement that I'll never want to see again. It was in the middle of a snowstorm, and I was cramped up over a log with testicles freezing to the log, and it was just not a good. There was nothing good about it, and every time I went to get up, it was just like somebody sticking a knife in my guts and just going, "You're not going anywhere," and just cramp me up. Yeah, that's so funny. Of course,
first time I ever had anybody refer to that with their testicles being stuck to the log. So thank you for that. That's gonna go on the highlight reel right there. Oh wow, that's too much. So you and I were also talking about food. Like, you know pretty much exactly what you had to eat out there over your 64-day time frame. Care to share with everybody what your diet consisted of?
Well, first meal was a pike. Other than berries, I had I'd grab a handful of berries, but I had too much to do, and berries weren't going to fill me up. So I just kind of, other than having a handful of them as I walked by a patch, there was nothing. But as far as the food goes, fish was my main thing until day 34. And I'd been having just the worst luck. My blunts that I'd taken, I'd shot 4 or 5 grouse that I blew feathers, just looked like somebody exploded a pillowcase, and they flew away. The one, I got so excited and got about a foot off the ground, falling from the tree, and all just boom, gone. And I'm like, no, that didn't just happen. Kidding. So the night before day 34, it went so calm. It was like just that most awesome calmness. I spent a lot of time in the bush, and whether I've never seen it, heard it, whatever, or just never noticed, but there was nothing. There was not a ripple on the water, not a leaf rustle, not a bug, not a bird, like nothing. You had to like just listen, and I said, I wonder if this is what Simon and Garfunkel meant when they wrote The Sound of Silence. And that night I talked about waking up, and it was like, oh my God, I feel, and I changed my blunts on my arrows. I cut all the barbs off the judo points, and I don't know why, but I was just laying there, and I'd been awake since like 4 o'clock in the morning, and brain just going, what's going on? I'd only shot 1 red squirrel. So in that whole time till day 34, I had 1 red squirrel, and the rest was all fish. And I was like getting so frustrated with that because I was hitting them and things like that. And I was calling moose every morning and every evening that was calm. And like, I've called moose my whole life type thing. And it was like this lake was just so vast. And I could tell how far it was carrying out across the water and just waiting for that. And nothing, like just never. And they never showed any of that. And, you know, but day 34, I got that lake trout in the morning. And then it was funny because I was talking about how different it was going to be. I catch that lake trout and I throw it's the next cast. And what people don't know is I went up there and I was being cocky and I'm taking the lure up to the camera going, yeah, you're coming up to Reindeer Lake and you want to go fishing. If you're a nice person, I might make you a lure and we know they work. And and I go and the next cast is gone and it goes sailing out in the water and I'm going, oh, you know, and it was.
I sank in my seat for you when that happened.
Oh, geez.
No.
Oh yeah, it was the gold hellfire. You know, I don't know how big that pike was that came in and took it, but it was like 35 pound pike, like just an enormous fish. And that fish actually took 2 of my lures on me. We had a little agreement and or disagreement. And I could never get him. Then the point where he was at, I couldn't get my gill net to get in around and I wanted the gill net for him so bad, but didn't work out that way. But like the gold hellfire, I'd caught 9 lake trout and a pike on that thing already before that guy took that one on me. And but day 34, I caught that lake trout and I said, to hell with it. I don't have another lure made. I'm going to grab my bow and go for a walk. And I go for a walk and I shoot 2 grouse. They only show 1 on the film, but I shot 2.
Yeah.
And then I shoot a red squirrel and I'm going, this is awesome. And then I go to my gill net and I get a whitefish. And it was the first whitefish I got. And I'm like, just so stoked. And I go back and my smoker, they never showed really my setup there, but I had that monster pike because it hadn't smoked enough on the day previous for me to, you know, so I put it back on the smoker. I had the lake trout that I caught in the morning. I had the whitefish that I caught in the morning, 2 grouse and a red squirrel on all. And I'm just going, I've got a smorgasbord here tonight. And I ate that night. That was the one night I truly pigged out and ate more than I should have, but it was well worth it.
Yeah, was that you think that was like the change of the season that brought on that calm lull, or was it just for God's sake?
I believe it was the land. I believe I talked about it. I said I don't know what it is, but I can. And when you spend enough time in the woods, the land does speak to you. And as much as it'll tell you bad things are coming, like you've been on the canoe enough to know, man, that feels like snow's coming or that feels like rain's coming. And even though you haven't heard a clap of thunder or, you know, seen any lightning, you can just feel it, right? And that's how that day was for me. I could just feel something was, and like I said, I don't know if it's going to be good or if I don't know if it's going to be bad. And it turned out to be fabulous. And from that point on, it was like the land had accepted me, and because I had been struggling with it, and other than the fish, you know, there were a lot of things getting on my case.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, that was my phone, people. You heard that, but let's just hang that up. Sorry about that, and turn the ringer off. There we go. Yeah. So when you said you were smoking fish and stuff like that. Did you have a stockpile? Were you caching stuff to you know, obviously
yeah, like I said, I had I figure I got 150 pounds of fish over the maybe a bit more. I had 3 pike alone that were all over 20 pounds. I don't know if any were over 25. Apparently they're the biggest 3 fish I ever caught on alone. So, but anyways, they were, you know, they were big. The one was 42.5 inch long. you know, the one had a 20-inch girth on it. There was a pound and a half whitefish in the one and a pound and a half burbot in the other one.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, I think I ended up with 16 lake trout. That would have been on an average of, they were an honest 4 pounds, you know, 2 whitefish. I ended up with 9 grouse, 12 red squirrels, 2 pine martens, about 8 to 10 pounds of mushrooms, and 8 to 10 quarts of berries. So with all that food, you think it's a lot really when you break it over 64 days. You know, I was eating close to 3 pounds of food a day and still lost 1.13 pounds a day. So
Wow, that's crazy. And so out of all that, what do you think you were lacking most when it comes to nutrition?
sodium, without a question, that's ultimately what made me tap. Was I started dehydrating so badly. Day 50 was where I really started to notice it, and that was the day I could no longer feel my feet at all. I melted socks to my feet twice, trying to warm them up, and I couldn't even tell that they were getting that hot. And it was the one night just before I tapped there, I take a toenail off, and you know, that's all they showed. Yeah, they didn't show me lift every other one just hanging by a thread. Like I could have just went like that, and every one of them would have come off. But I was just, yeah, I like these things, you know. So and didn't matter because I couldn't feel it. Like I literally, so
Thank goodness, right?
I guess.
Yeah.
And you know, when I dehydrated, I had 12 rocks, and they're all about the size of a softball, maybe a little bigger. And I would put them all at the fire, and you know, I'm burning all softwood out there. So about every 2 hours, I would have to get up and light restoke the fire. And I would take these 6 rocks, and I would put 2 at my feet and 2 at my midsection and 2 up under my arms. And that was great for about the first 6 weeks, or 6 weeks I was using them, type thing. And that last 4 nights, the only spot that got warm was where they were touching. And I was laying awake all night, rolling them up and down and trying. Man, I was cold. And for the 4 nights, I didn't sleep. I was too cold to sleep. I literally laid there like a dog shivering. Alan and I talked about it. You know, he was as done as I was. He just had a little bit more in the tank, and my tank was empty. And, you know, they show when I tapped there, it was 8:43 in the morning, and the sun's just coming up behind. And they didn't show me 3 big pieces of fish they're trying to get, you know, and I went for a walk with no camera or nothing. And then I come back, and if you notice, when I tapped, there's a great big ring where I'd had a bonfire, and there's still a, you know, pretty much a waist high fire going when I make the phone call. And I had burned every piece of wood that I had stored and around, just trying to get warm. I was doing everything I could possibly do to get that next day, you know, just give me that. But I knew, like, I can't even describe the cold. You know, I've been cold, and but I've never been like that. And it became too much. And I have no trouble admitting it. You know, and a lot of it, I'm sure, has to do with the fact of the dehydration and what have you. My body just couldn't retain water anymore. And when I come back out, I was suffering from what they call edema. It was my body saying, hey, we need that stuff. And once I had some sodium back in, well, my body started to get a big pocket of water here, and one on my leg and one down on my ankle and one behind my knee, you know,
Right.
body saying, hey, we need to store this stuff. And they cut me down. I goes on 2 liters of water a day. Didn't get a coffee for the first, I don't know, 7 days I was in rehab or whatever. And all I wanted was, you know, like, the first thing they give me to eat was 5 dried apricots and 10 almonds. And I'm like, you know, what are you doing here? Like, give me
Where's
some
my
food.
cake, man?
Oh yeah, like it was just, and like, but they know what they're doing, and the refeeding program and everything was like, you were getting checked on by medical staff 4 or 5 times a day. You know, you always had somebody. They give you little wee snacks, you know, throughout the day type thing. And every day, everything had increased just by a little bit. And, you know, I think it was like day 8 or something. I was there, and I got some trail mix with a couple M&Ms, and I had no sugar since then, other than like in a bread or something like that.
Yeah.
And it was just like, oh my God, does that taste so good? You know, and it was just a couple M&Ms, but small rewards.
Yeah, that's crazy. Oh, Jesus. So I feel cold just thinking about that. You know, it's the fact that, yeah, when you're building a fire that big and you can't feel yourself, but you're so so freaking chilly that you just can't warm up. That's your body, right? It's your body telling
they so when they show the ice all broke up where my gill net was in it,
you.
I'd been ice fishing out there for 7 days or 8 days, something like that. And that wind got so crazy that it came in and just blew every ounce of ice on the lake apart. Like they didn't show up, but it was taller than me, and I'm a 6-foot guy. The ice was piled up on the shore taller than me, and had already frozen over within 24 hours, like a solid mass, and the whole bay was froze over again, and my gill net was wherever the hell it was. And so
let's take a little step back here. When you started the show back September 15th time, when they kind of put you into your area, between that time and 64 days later, when was the biggest shift in weather, like weather change? Like,
when they
where
showed all those geese,
you know, here's fall, but now it's freaking winter.
when they showed all those geese flying out of the Arctic, like they had Melanie videotaping, myself videotaping, and everybody who was still there.
Mhm.
Those geese hopped on the train coming out of the Arctic and flew like that for 3 days. So I have never in my life seen, and we were so close to it that they were way up and had no interest in taking a break for another, you know, few hours down the flight path type thing. After that 3rd day type thing, when there was hardly a goose flying left in the sky, here comes winter. October 4th was our first snowfall. So we'd been there 19 days when we had the snow. It didn't stay, but 4 to 5 days previous to October, so like September 28th to 29th, somewhere around there, every night my water was frozen. So, and basically from that point on, was frozen. You know, some of the days, and there was the odd night where we had some gorgeous couple days and things got, you know, that's when Taz got his maggots in his stuff and what have you. Just bad timing and what have you. So, and that's part of the reason I lost those two fish there in my live well. Big mistake that you don't make on a loan. And
Yeah.
you know,
It's funny when they show stuff, the way they edit the show, you can almost sometimes you can almost forecast what's going to happen. Like for some reason they put the odd axe chopping scene in there.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, or wood chopping, and you go, oh no, they're going to take it off the shin, or something's going to happen, or a fit. And
Yeah.
sure enough, it happens, right? And you get that shiver, right? And I always play the hero in front of my wife. I go, I seen that coming. You know what I mean? Because my wife is a fan of Alone as well, and when
Right.
the series comes out, we're glued to the TV and we binge watch, right? So
It's a great show. Like,
it is,
you know,
fantastic.
yeah, I've watched it ever since season 1. My brother, my dad, you know, like we love the show. Like it's yeah, and you get so, you know, it's amazing how many people you get attached to throughout the years, you know, like, and I talk with Clay and Jordan every once in a while on, you know, and what have you. Everybody's great guys. Coulter was part of our boot camp, and Michelle was part of our boot camp, and you know, just they're all great people. And Biko was a big part of helping me get through the interview process. A friend of mine, Charlotte, and him were friends, and he helped with a few things that I was doing. So thanks, Biko. And you know, but when that weather hits, look out.
Yeah. You know, from other other alone contestants that we've had on the show. Let's see, we've had Kyla Moreau, we've had the Baird boys on, Juan
Yeah.
Pablo Quiones, Joe Robinette, probably missing somebody, but and they've all said the same thing. You ask, like, what are your relationships like with the other contestants? And you've already been touching on that. Obviously, you kind of build a brotherhood, sisterhood type of thing going on. You've all endured the same thing, right?
That's it. And, like Alan and I, we talk, Alan and I, Melanie and I, Jody and I, Kate and I, and Mikey and I talk the most. I still talk to Taz and still talk to Luke, but I talk to the other ones pretty regularly, and they're fabulous people. They all are. And, I was blessed to meet every one of them. And, and Mikey, he took it real hard. He had a whole bigger purpose than the rest of us to be there, Growing up, he grew up in a real poor environment, and he's never been able to get ahead of that game. And Mikey and Hazel have 5 kids, and the youngest one being autistic. I know a lot of people didn't talk about Mikey talking about his other kids very much and what have you, but believe me, he talked about them all. And I talked to them, Michaela and Sky and Dustin, and guys, they're great kids, and Mikey loves them to death. But the show, portrayed that he didn't even know them, where that's so far from the truth. So next time anybody's watching it, remember that there's a lot of stuff that's editing that people have no control over, and
right. They want to put out the best story, right?
Well, that's it. And they try and stay along the same storyline for every person, and that's just the way it is. And, Alan, and he's just a great guy. And, his students and stuff, the integrity the man has, when he released that duck out of his gill net and that pine marten out of his snare, he could have just as easily put that camera off and had a meal that night and what have you. And a lot, that duck carrying more fat than we ate, but that's the type of integrity of that man. And he's a great man. And, his students were the ones that talked him into doing that. And he's the one who got the outdoor education program in the high schools out there and part of the curriculum. So, for him to do that, it's just a great reward, and how he can inspire so many kids. I think it's great.
What do they call it? He's got scruples. He's got more.
He does very much.
Yeah. Back to Mikey a little bit there. I know when he came back and following you through Facebook and Instagram, there was a bit of a push. I believe they had a GoFundMe page set up for him.
Yeah. So far that's raised over $105,000 today, and they've ordered a speaking machine for Nikolai. So they are so excited, and he talked about that one time on one of the episodes, and he said, for all you parents to go tell your kids to be quiet and stuff, just remember that there's parents out there that would just love to hear their kids say something. And that really resonated with me. And he is that guy, and that money that's being raised, to me, it's so awesome, because it will go to every bit of the right use. And, and they'll create awareness for autism everywhere. It's become more common than not. We all seem to know somebody who's suffering from it. And, it's hard. And being down in the US, well, yeah, it's great. You can buy insurance if you can afford insurance. And, people don't look at everything for what's really the truth and how hard things can be for certain folks.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a good thing. Like, you had a voice too, and you actually spoke out for it. And that's very good. So thank you very much for that on Mikey's behalf, and Mikey, if you happen to be watching the show at any time here, keep the fight up, man, because you know what? It's great to hear your child's voice, and the speaking machine might, it gives them that ability. So that's a great thing.
It is so.
Yeah. So like, other relationships that you've built through this, let's go now to the end, okay? When you tap out, I want to talk to you about your injury that you had on your arm too, because there's a good little story. But taking it to the end, did you know? Well, you probably didn't even know that when you were tapping out, it was between you and Alan, right?
I had a pretty good idea.
You had a good idea, yeah.
I really did. Different directions I seen boats and helicopters go, and I'd kind of kept a mental note in my head and what have you, and going, somebody tapped today. I called when Lee tapped. I didn't know it was Lee, but I'd seen the two boats going, and you knew when there was two boats going, yeah, they had the two crews, and it was everybody. And I pretty much had it pegged right to the tee. And when I come back, I was talking with all the production crew, and I said, "So when are you going to get Alan?" They go, "What makes you think it's Alan?" And I said, "I don't think it's Alan. I know it's Alan." And they kept going and on, and so anyways, I kept going on, and they go, "Oh, what about Luke?" I said, "It's not Luke." I said, "It's not Kate. It's not anybody but Alan." I said, "Mikey's here with me." I said, "So I guarantee you it's Alan." And they're like, "Oh yeah, okay." And they said to me the next day, they said, "Do you mind coming down so we can film the winner getting off the helicopter and you congratulating?" So I said, "So you want me to go congratulate Alan getting off the helicopter?" And they just and sure as shit, I went out there and I walked up and gave the guy a great hug. And him and I spent the next 11 days in rehab, and then we got to spend 2 days in Saskatoon, where went out for pizza and wings one night and an all-you-can-eat buffet the next. So,
oh wow,
yeah.
Wow. And how hard is it to stay tight-lipped once you get home? Obviously, you're bound under contract. You can't say nothing to anybody, right? It's got to be hard, right? Because everybody's asking you, "How'd you do, Wyatt? How did you do?" Right?
Yeah, my kids didn't even know. And it's funny because I had I was doing a thing at Chuck's Roadhouse or they were doing a thing. I was just showing up.
Parties?
Yeah, the watch parties. So, and we had, I had made a deal with them that if you're going to all watch me starve to death, they said you can bring some food donations for a local food bank. And we ended up raising a truckload full of food and a bit of cash and stuff for the local food bank. And that was great. The community really pulled together. And the last night, I got like 200 people there. Like the place was full, and everybody believed I had won. And everyone's going, "There's no way he's going to be here and lose." Like he's not going to. And when I tapped, you've never seen a place deflate so fast in your life, man. It just went. Yeah. And I'm standing there with a big smile. I already knew it was coming. And no one else did. Like I said, not even my boys. They had thought I'd won. All their friends are there. And it took about 5 to 10 seconds. And then everybody just kind of went, wow, and started applauding. And it was great. It was, and, it was an overwhelming. My kids come up and gave me a big hug and said, "We're proud of you, Dad. Love you." And, anybody who knows me knows how hard it was for me to make that phone call. And I was done. And that's just the way, what else can I say, and I have no regrets or no nothing. I'm so proud of what I did out there that I don't care what it, and like I said, shake Alan's hand any day of the week and say how great he is, because it's true. And I couldn't have lost to a better man.
Well, your heart's in the right place, man. Like, you did stuff here at Chuck's to raise money, had these walks or raise like food and stuff like that for people that can really use it. And, it's you got a good heart, man. You got a good heart.
I said that on the one interview is, if you do something good for somebody, how does it make you feel?
Yeah.
Good. You do something bad to somebody, how does it make you feel? Bad. Yeah. So why do that to yourself? You know, make
right?
yourself feel good rather than bad, and do something good for someone else.
Cool. Okay, so we're at about 8 o'clock here. I'm just going to take a quick commercial break here, Wyatt, and then we're going to come back, maybe talk about the stick in the arm injury, and then we'll
All
invite a
right.
bunch of guests up here, maybe to ask you a couple questions. And I do have a couple more questions for you as well. So we'll see you in just a short moment.
Thanks. Looking forward to
There's
it.
nothing like being out there. For over 50 years, we've been connecting people with nature by building classic Canadian canoe designs using the best materials available. We built a reputation on durable, dependable canoes that allow you to focus on what's important, whether that's unplugging in remote wilderness, spending quality time with your favorite people, or nailing the perfect line. Visit novacraft.com to find the perfect canoe for you and locate your nearest authorized dealer.
Tonight's episode of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show is brought to you by Kid Products, stick stoves and reflector ovens proudly made in Canada. Algonquin Outfitters, with 5 key locations in and around Algonquin Park to serve your backcountry needs. Salis Marine, keeping you safe on the water since 1999. Ostrom Outdoors, custom fit canoe packs and barrel harnesses. And Novacraft Canoes, connecting you with nature in Canadian-made canoes since 1970. And welcome back to the second half of CANOEHOUND'S Outdoor Adventure Show with guest tonight, Wyatt Black from Alone Season 10. Having a great evening so far. Hope everybody's having a good time. Let's bring Wyatt back up here on panel. And while we're doing that there, I just want to let everybody know that I did post a link in the chat there for anybody that may want to come up and ask Wyatt a question. I also have a bunch of starred questions throughout the chat tonight there that we'll try to get to here very shortly. But with that being said, feel free to pop in. We'll take about 5 guests, depending on how much time we have left, and we'll go from there. So, Wyatt, you had the toenail incident on the show. You were melting socks to your feet. One of the things that they really played on the show was when you had a stick that got lodged in your forearm.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So when I was doing the poles for my shelter, I'd cut as many of the branches off the black spruce and stuff as high as I could reach, save me having to bend over and do it on the ground. And I had a cluster of them, and I didn't pay enough attention. And there was one that was just standing up about 3 feet that had snapped off, and it had a whole bunch of little shards coming up. When I went down with the axe, I just stuck my forearm right onto it, and boy, did she light me up. And so I pulled the one piece out of here and the other piece out of here, and there was only 2 holes, and I could tell right away that I'd gone in. They were both about 3/4 of an inch long and fairly meaty. So I was like, oh God, and it didn't take long, and it started festering and what have you. And I'm like, and within 24 hours, it was about the size of a softball and was sticking out, inch and a half. I could take my arm and go like that by day 3, and I could squirt plus 5 feet across the room. Like it was just and it's coming out. I'm putting I've cut all these black spruce down. I've got all kinds of fresh pitch oozing out of them, and I'm making a little concoction there with Labrador tea and spruce needles and what have you as an antiseptic, and washing it like numerous times a day. And as soon as I'd wash it, I'd throw the pine pitch all over it. And, it was sore. There's no and I knew how bad it was infected. It was red. It was hot, and I just didn't want to show them, and I kept it hidden. And day 10, I was like, okay, I've got this thing beat. It's getting, and I better tell them. And the producer of the show pulled me aside and was like, man, this is all about a story. And if we had to take you out because you went all septus on us and what have you, we have no story. We don't want to pull you and let, and I'm like, I'm sorry, man. But I was like, and like, we get it. But, and, it was, so day 11, here comes the doctor. So he comes out and show me this thing, and they're like, oh, yeah, okay. And he's squeezing it, carrying on, and okay, everything's good. When we made me go through my whole process of how I've been cleaning it, and he says, I couldn't have done a better job myself. He says, it's great. No worries. Everything was good. And day 14, I'm there cleaning it in the morning, and I'm like, what the hell? And I grabbed my Leatherman, and they showed me pulling it out, and that was the second half. So that means one of those pieces had impaled me 1.5 inches, and it took 14 days for it to work out that 3/4 of an inch from that. And I'll tell you, as soon as that piece come out, it just went, it was like healed within 2 days. It was amazing. But
I'm really surprised the medics didn't say you probably have a piece lodged there. I knew you had a piece lodged in there.
Yeah, he squeezed the shit, like he was pouring it right to it and what have you. And
yeah,
couldn't feel it. Like he tried his damnedest to find out who was in there. I was ready to punch him in the head. So.
Yeah, I have a YouTube friend. Many of the people in the chat are familiar with her. You might even be familiar with her. Karina Alexis from Alexis Outdoors. She had a dog that was running through the forest and got a stick lodged in its mouth, and it went like, and it did the same thing. It snapped off in there, right? Well, they went and they got most of it out, but this poor dog had, like, it was festering and pussing and oozing for months on end. And then finally one day they went in and they pulled this stick out that was still lodged up inside there. Yeah. And from that there, when your arm kept pussing up like that, I go, he's got to have a piece of something still in there, right? Sure enough, then you had, and you got great video of that, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Squeeze the blood running down the arm. For anybody, I told you, spoiler alert. But yeah, man, that was pretty gruesome. Jeez. So, any other key injuries or like that may have happened out there? No,
not to me anyway. And and that one was stupid. I don't know how many calories I burnt healing that infection. And like I said, I've told everybody it'll never be used as an excuse in my books because it's part of the game. And if I hadn't have done it, we wouldn't be talking about it. But I did do it, and I know it cost my body a lot of calories healing that goddamn thing. Not to mention, provided me a lot of discomfort.
Right? Yeah.
It was.
Like how do you sleep with that?
For a bit.
Yeah, crazy. So you did that when you were building your shelter. I had a shelter question for you, and it's before you went out there. Did you have the type of shelter in mind that you wanted to build, or did you get out there and sort of wing it from
winging it? I didn't have a clue what was going to happen with that. I just needed something temporary. So I looked and there's 2 perfect trees on the point here. And I haven't looked at my area, and I know, okay, well, the west is over there. I'm in the perfect spot for the wind. I don't want to blow any of my big game chances. So I decided I'm going to set up here for a bit. It's nice. And I knew it was out on a pretty exposed point, but it wasn't too bad. And I'm sleeping there, and I just put an A-frame, and I could see out the one end and out the other, and no problem. And I didn't even put a door on it for weeks. There was no need. And I slowly built the one log end with the fireplace on it, and then built the door. But when I had the one end closed and no door on, I'm laying there sleeping one night, and it was when we had one of those big windstorms, and I'm going, I'm moving. How the hell am I moving? And I'm like, did I eat the wrong mushrooms? What's going on here? Like, why am I moving? And all of a sudden I realized, and I had put my ridgepole between 2 trees, and the wind was so strong, and there were so many blowdowns there, it was blowing the whole root ball up and taking my sleeping bag and bed up with it, and then set me back down. And then it picked me up, and I finally figured that out. So the next day I'm out there with my silky, and I cut the top off both those trees so I didn't have that problem again. Yeah, that was a rude way to wake up. And like, it was black that night. The wind out there was just unbelievable. I can't even describe it. I know on the show they put it at 50 miles an hour. So, that's pretty damn good wind coming across the lake.
Yeah. Wow. That's crazy. It's somebody who's trying to rock you to sleep, right?
Yeah. Were they ever? Just once.
Just once. Well, we do have a guest down here in the basement if you want to say hi. Somebody you might actually be familiar with because everybody else isn't familiar with him. You got good old Kevin Cameron.
Yeah.
How you doing, buddy?
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. You've been on the show before.
Oh, never. I don't like this show.
Who is this man down here? I've never met him in my life.
Dennis is just full of it. I know why. I got two quick questions for you. One really cool one is Canadians seem to be really winning a lot on that show in the last couple of years. Or any backlash with that? The American are saying, "Hey, why are these Canadians winning? Or are we better or what?"
Well, we in a lot of ways we've been in our own backyard. There's been Americans like Clay Hayes and Jordan Jonas and what have you. We've been the last couple of years okay, but it hasn't always been that way. And we're just on a good run right now. And let's face it, look at the two great wars and how the Canadians, we use Canadians, but we've got every ethnicity from around the world, Swedes, Scandinavians, Dutch, Scotsmen, Irishmen, the list goes on. So we have a lot of resilient people that have come from tough places that, just know how to survive. And Alan being Northern BC, he's been there before. I'd give Mikey that big shout out there. That boy's never seen winter. Grew up in Georgia, and the last 55 days up there, I talk about being cold. I've been cold lots. That dude's never been cold like that.
That's cool. Well, that's a good answer. The other one I got for you is throughout the show, you're always saying, well, they didn't show, but they didn't show, but they didn't show. So what's the one scene that you filmed that they didn't show and you came back and said, oh, man, there's got to be lots, but what was the one scene where you filmed?
I did one on Remembrance Day. It was the first Remembrance Day since I can remember where I haven't worn a poppy on since November 1st. I noticed it. Both my grandfathers on both my sides, my great-grandfathers are all World War I and World War II veterans. It means a lot to me. And I talked a lot about the meaning of it. And I used Don Cherry as an example, and I love Don, and he was wrong in just in the way that he didn't present things right. And we're all so mixed. All that was wanting to be said is that just know, and it's no different than us teaching history in our school system, and learn what it means to live here and what was sacrificed. And that's all that really needed to be said about that, and do our part to show, and hopefully we never have to see that again. It's just a way of saying thanks. And he just went about it the wrong way. And I think I did a lot better job of explaining what he wanted to say, because Don was a true patriot. He promoted, but a lot of like my grandfather, little coarse, and didn't always say things the right way.
That's good. Awesome answers. Well, thanks a lot, Dennis. Way to go, Wyatt, and way to go, Alan. Great Canadians to win. I was quite proud. I love the idea of you being in Saskatchewan. Amazing territory. I watched every single show, but that was my key show because of the
heading back out there in end of November and then the beginning of December. I'm gonna speak to the local Cree people, so that's going to be very cool. I'm quite honored to do that.
That's
Awesome.
great. Fantastic.
Green room, Kevin, if you like.
Woo, all right. Woo.
Take care, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Right.
Appreciate it.
Bye, guys.
Yeah, we still got room for a few more people. If anybody else wants to come on up and ask a question of Wyatt, by all means, please do. Wyatt, question that hasn't been asked, I don't think, in the chat. I haven't seen it yet. Anyways, are your 10 items? What 10 items did you select?
I took a Silky Katana Boy 650, an amazing saw, Japanese. I bought chainsaws for less money, but worth every penny. I took a Hultford's, if I'm saying it wrong, I apologize, handcrafted blacksmith axe from Sweden. That was just incredible. I took a Leatherman multi-tool that my dad modified, turned the can opener into a gut hook, put an extra knife blade on the file, turned my two flat screwdrivers into gouging chisels for making the Gold Hellfire and other lures and spoons and things like that. Took the Phillips screwdriver and turned it into a center punch for me. Every modification he made on that for me, I utilized at some point throughout the show. Snare wire, which I used for a lot of things. I only snared one red squirrel. I had no rabbits in my area or anything. So the snare wire was good for other purposes, like making the lures. I took my 25 hooks and my 300 yards of fishing line. I took my 80 meters of paracord, which I found a 9-strand military grade paracord. Most 550 paracord had to be 550. Most of it only has 7 strands. I found some that had 9, which came in very useful. It made sure I had slightly thinner strands, and I got 2 extra strands out of every chunk that I cut for building my gill nets. So Taz, he got the extra 20 yards that I had on my 100-yard spool, which he utilized to build one of his gill nets. So
cool.
I took my bow and arrow, and you're allowed 9 arrows, and not being in the area and all the rest of it, I took more arrows than any man should own, let alone carry with them. And I had a bunch of flu arrows and different types. And if you pay attention, Mikey, the first grouse he shot was with a yellow and white flu arrow that I had gifted him. He didn't even know what a flu arrow was because, we all shared and helped each other out. So I had bow and arrow on my ferro rod, my pot, my sleeping bag, and I think I'm done.
Think you're done, eh? That's crazy. I didn't know that they had 9-strand paracord, the military grade, eh? Yeah. And only 80 yards. They wouldn't let you have 2 hanks of the stuff.
Nope.
Crazy.
And they measured everything. Everything got measured. That's how come I gave Taz the extra 20 yards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
You're only allowed 9 arrows, and yeah, it was, and like, my wife knit me a sweater. I should have brought it out here. Not a sweater, a scarf. It's called they allow you a 42-inch long by 24-inch schmog or a scarf. And I went and bought the heaviest wool I could buy, and my wife knit me this 42-inch by 24-inch scarf that had every color in the rainbow under it. It had purples and pinks and yellows and greens and blues and reds, and I was going to use it if I needed to, but instead I rolled it up every night oh my God, it was my pillow that, you don't have a pillow. So that thing was, I'm still pulling twigs out of it, but what I got, and I used it as my seat, like, sitting on a cold rock. It's not like you got a chair that you'd kick back in. So I'd set that thing down, fold it up into a half dozen, and then sit on that every night while I'm sitting there having my tea and my piece of fish by the fire. And, things like that. They didn't show my little cooler that I made out of my gators and packed with moss and ice and what have you, and kept fresh fish for once the weather got cold enough. I was keeping it fresh where it wasn't frozen. And yeah.
That's pretty crafty. So all this stuff, did you ever been part of any bushcrafting courses or anything like that? Or is this all stuff that you learned off the land?
Boy Scouts. That was the only one I was ever in, but I don't know did you ever run into a cat named Jim Woods? He was a principal / school teacher, Irwin Memorial, Bracebridge. Loved canoeing. Took us all whitewater canoeing, took us all through the Sherburne access route canoe trip, leaving from St. Leslie M. Frost Center and going all down through there when we were grade 5, grade 8 was our whitewater canoe trip. Jim was a fabulous man. Loved being on the water and taught a lot of kids how to go canoeing. So, so he taught me a lot. My grandfather and my father and my uncle David, you know, and an endless wealth of trappers and hunters and stuff that I've been blessed to be around my whole life. All, you know, hey kid, do you ever see this? You know, and no, and you know, there's something. Tell me something I might remember. There's something else that goes on with it, but show me how to do it, and I'll have it for life. And you know, I was one of those guys that had enough people that took the time to show me, and you know, that's, you know, great thing.
Have you ever thought of teaching your skills?
I have. I have done some of it, but on a smaller group basis and what have you. And you know, I have no trouble. I've been really trying to think about how I want to go about things, and you know, I don't want to rush in to do something and do something half-ass. I want to figure out that right little niche. And you know, Luke, he's invited me to go to Hawaii in February to teach a week-long survival course there at his school, and so I think I'll get a better feel of it. That, you know, I coached minor ball for a couple of years and what have you, and loved doing it and loved being around kids, and you know, taught my own boys as much as I can teach them, and you know,
sure,
yeah,
that's pretty cool. I'm going to take a few questions here that were in the chat from early on. This one goes all the way back to 721 of the chat. Super good camping. Tim's asking, he hasn't watched the show, but how long do you spend out there? I think we kind of touched on that, but you were out for 64 days?
Yeah, 64 days, and I was out there for 9 days, 11 days before the show and 13 days after the show. So, yeah, that's another 11, 24. So I was out there for a total of 88 days.
Right. Evan Lefebvre. Now, I think this goes back to about the time that you were talking about being naked on camera a bunch of times. But have you ever had to meet the video editor? And if so, were they blushing?
Well, let me tell you something. I got to meet them all, and not just the editors, all the girls and all of the camp cooks, because they had to set up at Arctic Lodges and do that. And they were all blushing. Not me. Yeah. I run around naked all the time. I don't care. I've been seen naked by more people than you can imagine. So it was, yeah, but they were, I always had to do a couple little jokes while I was naked too and stuff, and made them laugh about it. So, yeah, a few of them were pretty embarrassed, even mentioning to me that they'd seen some of the video footage.
Oh, wow. That's fun. So they actually start editing like right on site there. So they'll collect all your stuff. And
before we're even back, they already know stuff. They were coming out and telling people if they were doing things right as far as the filming, doing things wrong, you know, giving us pointers, because none of us are cameramen, you know, like, you know, and like, when I was cleaning fish and stuff, and you'd see me talking like I am now, and then you'd see one close up with me filleting the fish or plucking a grouse or whatever. That's because I'd set up 2 cameras or 3 cameras or 4 cameras, and you know, they had little tricks. You go like this, and they would know that, okay, on this date at this time he's got more than 1 camera going, so they would go to all your camera footage from that area and figure it all out and do all their editing. They do a great job, you know, and and they start right from the moment they pick up your first sleeve of footage.
Yeah, it's amazing how they could tell a story just in a couple of clips. You know what I mean? Because they're dealing with what, 10 contestants throughout 10 contestants?
Yeah, 10.
12. 10 contestants. And you got to fit them all in. So, but they'll usually segregate, you know, 4 or 5 this show, 4 or 5 that show, and then they'll interlap. And but they got to try and tell these stories in such short little clips, and you said you had over 700 hours of
Yeah, and
footage.
Alan would have had the same, and Mikey would have been well up over 500. You know, Melanie, she was there, what, 44, 45 days? So, you know, they'd have quite a bit of Melanie too, you know, and even the guys that were there, 20 days, would have been expected to have 160 hours. They wanted a minimum of 8 hours footage a day.
Mm-hmm. Wow. And that comes right into light with the next question here from Andre's asking, you're required to film constantly. So how is it to achieve with batteries lasting as long in cold temperatures?
You could start a mine with the amount of batteries they had. They would come and literally take a 5-gallon bucket and just dump it into my big box that I had there. And they would take, and then they gave you they had, I forget what they call it. It's every once in a while I see a blue light or something in one of the video footages or whatever. And it's a great big battery box that you can use. It's only used to charge your phone, your satellite phone, your radio, and your GPS. So that was there for that purpose. The cameras all took, like the GoPros, I don't know how many GoPro batteries I would have and how many of we had 2 big cameras, 2 GoPros, and then our 2 trail cameras. And there was no shortage of batteries. And if you were running low on batteries, you just sent a message out and they would say, okay, and they would do a drop for you. But you weren't allowed to be there when they would drop. You were only allowed to have any interaction with people on the medical check day. So if you had an emergent, and they'd tell you, okay, we're going to drop them here and you can pick them up later. And they didn't worry about getting all those spent ones. They just grabbed more. Between the 10 of us, I wouldn't want to guess how many batteries they had.
That is crazy. Yeah. I carry like 6 or 8 GoPro batteries on my canoe trips, and I think that's a lot, right? But I
was going through 6 to 8 GoPro batteries a day, easily. Yeah, like they were giving me at least 100, 150 GoPro batteries every time they come out. They would give me, 60, 70, 80 of the big camera batteries. I don't know how many, like retarded amounts. You didn't want to carry them. Mm-hmm. You just took, you just take your 4 or 5 that was good enough for the day.
That's burning calories, man.
Oh yeah, everything was burning calories. They estimated I was burning between 10 and 12,000 a day.
Wow. Yeah, well, when you're fighting cold and even the starvation, even being hungry burns calories, everything. Yeah.
Well, and your mind. Your mind is 9 calories a minute.
Yeah. So Josie, or Adventures of Josie, is asking if you could have brought one more item in addition to your 10, what would it have been?
Salt. Guaranteed salt.
Yeah.
If and when, I'm going to say when, because I'm pretty sure I was apparently one of their star comedians or whatever. So I might get a shot at a redemption series or something. And
there you go.
So I'm wondering.
That was a question for later. No. Plug your ears there. So yeah, was it this season or last season? I think it was Alone Australia, or the one that they had just before. Somebody brought a block of salt out, and I couldn't understand why they would have brought salt.
Luke took one this year.
Oh, okay.
And Luke, his father, Larry Dean Olson, was, and Larry was pioneer of survival bushcraft and all the rest of it. Founder of Rabbit Stick and numerous other large festivals and outdoor gatherings. And Luke took salt, and he gave up a ferro rod. He's that confident in his bow drill and friction fires that it wasn't even a question to him to give up the ferro rod. He just, I can light a bow, but it burns a lot of calories too. And, I just said, when it gets colder and stuff, I wasn't planning on keeping a fire going 24/7, so I figured ferro rod was a pretty safe way to go.
Yeah, because just procuring firewood is a job in itself.
Was it ever?
You know, yeah, yeah. Did you have a pretty good stockpile of wood? Keep it inside,
Yeah,
outside?
I usually kept 4 to 5 days ahead of the game.
Yeah,
Yeah, but I was
yeah.
cutting.
Because
I
you
cut
never know
fire.
if the weather's going to have you pinned down, right?
Well, it did when I lost those 2 fish. I was going to go on, but maybe that's a story for another day.
Yeah. We could we could touch on
All
it
right.
if you
Well,
want.
so I had slept. I had been 4 days in my shelter. We had that astronomical wind. It was like laying on the tarmac of a airport with 747s going 20 feet above your head all the time. I was only, anybody who's seen the show, I was only camped 30 meters off the side of the lake, and I couldn't even hear the waves. That's how loud the wind was coming over the head of me. Like, it was just, I can't even describe how loud it was. And I didn't sleep for 4 days. I burnt every bit of my firewood, like everything I had there. And when the weather finally broke, I just had to get out of my shelter. So I go out and I catch these 2 damn fish. I'd ate my last piece of fish that night. And I said, okay, I'm too tired. And I didn't want to, when the weather broke, like the temperature skyrocketed, all the rest of it. So I would have ended up with maggots or flies or whatever, the same way that Taz did if I hung him in a tree, or been worried about that. I could have stuck a stringer out in the lake and lost a bunch of my paracord or my, anything else. Or I could have stayed up all night and cut all my firewood to smoke the damn things and what have you, because I had nothing. And I just said, I don't have the energy. And I knew I was talking about it being wrong. I'd seen the mistake made on the show. And I'm figuring, I'm only 30 yards away from this. I'll hear anything that's trying to catch these fish, except for the damn otters that come in and got them. So, but that was a bad mistake. That cost me 4 days without food.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the old hindsight thing, right? Everybody's been in that situation, right? Where you go up north fishing or
2020.
something, you catch the fish, it's late, and it's like, oh, I don't want to clean them now. You end up feeding the snapping turtles, right? So
Yeah, I would have loved a snapping turtle, but there's there wasn't even bugs out there. No salamanders, no frogs, no snakes, no nothing. Like it was bare, too cold. There's none of that stuff out there. I've never even seen a woodpecker because there's nothing for him to eat.
that's crazy. Wow. Yeah. Adventures with Josie once again. She's on a roll here. What was the most beautiful thing you saw during your time out there?
So many, Josie, I can't even describe it. Breathtaking. Absolutely. Whether it was the geese flying over in such mass numbers, the one night the crescent moon, I felt like I could just reach out and grab it. The northern lights just dancing across the sky, and every star I grew up in beautiful places and I've never seen so many stars. Like, it was just like unbelievable. Some of the sunrises, some of the sunsets, like there was an endless supply of beauty. Josie, great question. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, when you're out there, just the backcountry is do you do a lot of backcountry camping around here, around home?
Yeah, I won't say around home. I go up Geraldton every year, moose hunting on a 10-day hunt, or Capas casing or Thunder Bay or wherever I get a tag for that year. I always go on archery season. We always end up in a couple fishing trips, whether it be in Thessalon or, Nottawasaga River or through Algonquin Park. I love the Crow River system, and me and some buddies used to go all down North Arm, Opiongo, and across Prue and down the Crow River and down into Lavier, and a beautiful run. So to say a lot of it, no, but enough of it, yes. Like we get as many trips in as we can a year. My good buddy Mike Peroni and I, and he's got a boy and a girl, and they're virtually the same age as my 2 boys, and him and I would take the 4 kids every first weekend in May. We had a little lake trout lake that we would take them into with the canoes, and we just incredible fishing. We were taking them in there from the time they could walk, and so yeah, no, I love doing that stuff.
That's great. Yeah, you know what? Can't take the backcountry out of you, right?
No, I wouldn't want anybody to even try. They might get hurt.
Jeff is asking, did you practice making and using handcrafted fishing rods?
No, I didn't. To be honest, I watched Clay Hayes. Mine was a very direct spin-off of what Clay Hayes built. And it worked. Clay was an awesome fisherman, and I took the lessons from Clay, and I utilized that, and I had it down to enough science that I was more worried about spending my time learning the plants and stuff that I didn't know. I knew there'd be a degree of trial and error with the fishing rod and what have you, but I had it pretty much figured out, so I wasn't too concerned about it.
Mm-hmm. Going to throw this up really quick. Christian Woloschuk, thank you very much for the super chat. He's saying, excellent show, solid run, Wyatt. Enjoy a cold one on me. So when I meet you, Wyatt, I'm going to have to buy you a beer, sir.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Christian. And Christian also had a question a little bit earlier, too. What was the most important thing you took away from your experience?
So many, but being humbled and learning some truths about myself that I didn't know, and learning why I made mistakes in my life, really understanding the reason of a lot of the mistakes I made, and knowing now not to do them again.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Christian.
That question. Along that lines, Wyatt, was one of the questions that I had written down that I wanted to ask, and I didn't know if I should even go there, because during the show you mentioned that you mentioned kind of what you just said, that you've had a few demons in your life that have haunted you, and that it was kind of like a reconciliation out there, give you that opportunity to ponder over those moments. Would you like to add to that at all, or would you rather keep it private?
If I was to give anybody a piece of advice that took me 52 years to learn, is don't dwell on the negatives. My dad and I had a pretty rough go over the years, for a lot of reasons. And, we've always got along. Like, it's not a case but a lot of the things I did, manifested the problem, made them worse. But throughout all that time, I always blamed him. It was an easy thing to do. And when I was out there, I found myself constantly going, oh, I remember when Dad taught me this, and I remember when Dad did this, and I remember and memories I had forgot I had been so long with it, because I dwelled on the negative. And I only hurt myself by doing it. So don't do it.
Yeah, that's good. Hey, don't beat yourself up over it, right?
We all make mistakes, and your father's no different. And now that I got a pair of kids, I understand that a lot more.
Tell me about it, man. No, that's great. You know what? It's funny how sometimes it takes moments like that. You have a lot of time to reflect out there, man. You're out there alone.
That's what I said. That 80 hours of laying there with that storm, and that's the thing. There's no drugs. There's no alcohol. There's no people. There's no nothing to cloud the truth. And I think going back to what we were talking about earlier, about that being a lot of the reason people tap is you can't hide from that truth. And we all have those demons, and they're not easy to deal with, and there's nowhere to hide from them. And it was funny, just before I left, I woke up one night, my wife says, what are you doing? And I said, I don't know. And I'm typing in my phone, and I woke up the next morning, and I read, one man has a closet full of secrets that he puts in a book, and another man has a book full of secrets that he puts in a closet. And as profound as that is, there's a lot of truth to it. And my closet full of secrets went under the ice in Reindeer Lake. So
there you go. You know what? I should send that saying into the producers that alone. At the beginning of the show, they always put a phrase.
Yeah. Well, actually, on the last episode, they put a quote on from The Quitter, and by Robert Service, and same guy that I was talking about that took me canoeing in grade 5, Jim Woods, there taught me about Robert Service and the cremation of Sam McGee and the shooting of Dan McGrew and all those classics and what have you. But the one called The Quitter was the one that resonated the most with me, and you know, I can speak it from heart, and everybody should read it. And if you're ever feeling down and that, look up The Quitter by Robert Service. It'll make you feel better.
I'm making a note right now. The Quitter. I'll get his name off you after the show.
Sure.
You obviously just went through a little emotional moment there. Was there anything else about the show that when you talk about it, it kind of gets you choked up or emotional?
Oh, yeah.
Not necessarily choked up, but feeling really emotional.
Yeah, no. There's so many, and they're not like emotional moments don't have to be sad just because a person sheds a tear, you know. And there's a lot more of those good tears than there is the ones that hurt. I really have to say that, you know, and a lot of it was very overwhelming to me. And it is it is a spiritual journey. And I think everybody should do it. And I don't mean to the degree that we do it on alone, but to take 2 weeks and go with no cell phone and no people and no internet and no dog or no comforts, really. And just go and connect with nature and see how you feel at the end of it. And anybody that says they can go on alone, go do that first.
Yeah. You know what? My wife always says, "How come you don't go do that show?" And it's like, I know exactly why I tap out, man. My family would pull me right out of there, and I'd be probably the first one to tap. And I'm not ashamed to say that because, yeah,
there's no shame in anybody tapping. You know, the fact that anybody even got on the show, like I said, they had almost 43,000 people apply for those 10 positions. You know, even the one guy tapped out day 1, and anybody who's got a fear, well, that dude's fear was bears, and he shows up on the beach and there's bear tracks everywhere. There's bear scat everywhere, and every noise in the bush was a bear because that's what you know. And he didn't even stay the first night because he was just so consumed with fear. And it can happen out there. You know, you don't have a gun, you don't have any, you know, you got a little thing of bear spray and a horn, you know. So if you're scared of bears, you know, you're not feeling very secure out there.
Yeah, you're in the wrong place, right? You didn't see any bears yourself, did you? Or
I didn't. I didn't see any bears. Didn't see any moose. I didn't see a damn. And that's the area I was in was a moose wintering area. There was all kinds of signs from past winter and what have you. I knew exactly they were coming. I just didn't know when. And it was after I left because by the time I left my area, there wasn't a squirrel track, a marten track, a grouse track. You could hardly find a mouse anywhere because I'd killed everything and ate it. It was. Yeah, I decimated my area. Like, yeah, you couldn't even hear a red squirrel for 5 miles.
Wow. Ollie's asking, what did you realize you missed from civilization you didn't know that you would miss?
I don't know if I missed anything really other than my family.
Yeah,
I really don't. It was very humbling, and you come home with a whole different outlook on what we need and don't need. And I really didn't want for nothing. You know, I'm not saying I wouldn't have loved to have had a joint and a scotch on the shore of the lake just to say, you know, but I didn't really miss it. You know, I didn't. No, other than my family, I don't really think I missed anything.
Yeah. When it goes back to talking about emotions out there, you also mentioned earlier in the show, or actually it was in the green room, about when you caught the one fish and how 4 days in or something, you were doing like the happy dance, right? That's
That was
emotion.
Oh yeah, and it's true emotion. Like in the same way when that lure went flying and you see me cursing and squaring, it was all I could do not to break that rod. You know, I'm like, whoa, man, yeah. Like I don't normally fly off the handle like that, but I was so mad. Like it was like, and yeah, there was a lot of bleeps, and that's the funny part. Like I do have a bad mouth on me, and you know my whole family. That was the big joke. It was going to be the bleep and blur season because
The deep and blur.
yeah, because and they know I like running around naked, and they know I swear a lot. So, and the first goddamn scene, I'm sitting at Chuck's Roadhouse with my wife and my kids and all my friends and that. And the first scene of me is me walking out bare ass naked, going for a swim, and the place just busts out in laughter, and my phone just starts going. Zzz, zzz, zzz.
That's great. That's great. Jeez, you don't have any props close by, right? I should have asked you to bring a couple of your props.
I got a couple close by, I think. Give me a quick second.
Yeah, sure, for sure. Well, he's ducking to get a few props. If anybody has any final questions here, we're drawing to a close on the show. Get them in the chat now, and we'll get them asked just before the end of the show. Hope everybody's enjoying the show. Wyatt, I'll tell you, was one of my favorites on the show. I had a few favorites. Alan was another one there who eventually ended up winning season 10 of Alone. Sorry, I did mention that there's going to be spoilers if you missed the series, but you know what? It's well worth the watch, even if you know kind of what's going to happen, because there's so many cool things that actually happened out there during this season. So by all means, get out there, check out the History Channel season 10 of Alone. Welcome back there, Wyatt. Let's see what kind of goodies you got for us here.
Yeah,
Don't even go full screen on this.
All right.
All right. What do we got first?
This is my Timber Ridge recurve. So this little girl went everywhere with me. 45-pound draw, nice and light, easy to carry, super quiet, and as accurate as you can shoot it. So this was one of my loved ones, but I've got a new bow by a guy by the name of Vidislev Kuhn. I hope I pronounced it right. Want to check out Vicky's, VIKIES.org. He's in Colorado. He's making me a beautiful long bow. My fur hat and my beaver mittens still smell like my campfire. Unbelievably warm. Made by a local native lady. Blue fox, 5mm moose hide, lined with lamb's wool, and absolutely beautiful. These are the arrows. I didn't take all these, obviously. These ones here, you can see all the blood and mud still on the fletching and what have you. They went through a lot of grouse and red squirrels and what have you, and had a lot of blood dripped on them, but I'm okay with that. And a couple pine martens. So we got those there.
Really quick, Wyatt, you mentioned a certain kind of arrow, one that you gifted. What type of arrow was that?
Yeah, the flu, which is this one here. So these ones are in real bad shape but these feather veins, you see how long they are. Yeah. So they don't fly near the distance. If you compare them to the vein that's on a normal arrow, you see the length of the feathers, right? So these don't fly near as far for shooting up in trees. This is a different variation of a flu, which I took these. Actually, when they show me walking up to get that first grouse that I showed on day 34, if you look at the bottom right-hand side of the screen, you'll see one of these laying on the ground that had another grouse stuck to it. So
I remember seeing that there, and I was wondering. I thought you had a really.
That's what that was from. And they didn't show that, so they did make a few mistakes in the. This is my Silky Katana Boy. This saw for anybody. This one here is the 650. This saw is just unbelievable. I can't say enough.
Well, I've got a couple of them. I haven't got that one, but I've got the Gom Boy and the big boy.
Right, and this one here is 36-inch long blade. I don't know how many trees, cut like and just chew through them. Not great for fine stuff, but really good. Couple of the books I used, we got the Dave Canterbury, Bushcraft and what have you. And then this is the one I use, is mainly edible medicinal plants. And all those tags in there are all things that were highlighted for my area that I studied constantly trying to learn. My axe that I took, this is a piece of old paracord I found on the side of the lake there. And just so when I started cutting holes in the ice, I didn't lose that. This one here, little, I need to touch it up, but the curve on there, I took this rather than so I could skin a moose or a bear or whatever if I needed. It's got a little mistake hole in it. If we look right here, that's not supposed to be there, and that's what happens when you get caught in a storm and you got to get out and get a tree off your shelter really quick, and you forgot to take the cover off your axe when you go to swing it. Mistake that I have to say I made. This is paracord. Now this is only the 7-strand, but I'll give you an idea of what it's like. So I had the 9, but I used every stretch of it. So, and I know this here is my ferro rod that I wore pretty much nothing. Also Swedish. When it comes to bushcraft and stuff, the Swiss and the Swedes are top notch at their jobs. So, you know, and that's about all I got here, I think. And well, Audrey, and this is a mug that the lovely ladies of the production crew had they put them together for us, and only the 10 participants of alone got one of these little mugs. So
Very cool.
yeah, nice camper mug.
Yeah. That is a good book, by the way. I do.
There you go.
Yes. And Dave Canterbury knows his stuff when it comes to bushcraft.
Yeah, I've got a couple of Larry Dean Olson ones too that they're in my other box, so I don't have them here right now.
That's awesome. Well, hey man, you know what? what a great night this has been. Truly a pleasure to have you on the show. We're going to take one last question. You touched on it a bit already, but I saved this one for the end because you kind of answered it. But if they asked you to come back for another season, would you do it?
In a heartbeat. They won't get me on the plane fast enough. You know, and I don't have to win it again. I just want to go win it by go. I'd love to, and I'll give it my best. But I'll have no shame in tapping. You know, I got a beautiful family to come home to, and what have you, and friends. And to me, that's more important. And you know, when things start shutting down, I've listened to my body and I've listened to my guts my whole life. And you know, I'd do it again. You know, but I really want to get out there and try it, and I hope that they don't do it in Canada. I really don't. As much as I love Canada, I just don't want to hear any of the hometown advantage or home field advantage or any of that. Send me somewhere where I'm the odd man duck. I'll go down to Georgia with Mikey and something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Would your wife want to see you go again?
Oh, probably. She probably packed me.
She's probably sitting in the background going, ah. Oh, man. Wyatt, you know what? Extremely proud of you. Your accomplishment there. Second place is a win in my books. And you did great out there. Thank you for the entertainment. And if you do get called upon once again, I will be rooting for you again, sir.
And I'll come back and talk about it with you again, Dennis. I've
that
enjoyed
would be incredible.
I've enjoyed this evening immensely.
Is there anything you want to share with everybody before we're done tonight's show?
Nothing at all, other than if anybody's out there and they got a few means, there's a GoFundMe for Mikey Helton and his son Nikolai. So by all means, you know, rather than buying me a beer, I'd rather see you send it to him and his family. It's a far better purpose. and just be good to each other. Enjoy the waters, enjoy the land, and get out there as much as you can.
If anybody's interested in maybe participating in that GoFundMe, I will get a link on my Facebook page tomorrow. I'll get that link, and I will also put it in the description of this video. If anybody wants to help out Mikey, it's going to a great cause. Let's
There's one on mine too. Look it up if you want. And yes, by all means, please. They're a lovely family and can really use the help, and I'd appreciate it.
And how can people follow you on your socials? You said you got Instagram
Well,
and Facebook.
yeah, I'm on Instagram. I think it's Wyatt Black 1971 and Facebook under Wyatt Black. That's the only like I was saying to you earlier, Dennis, I've only been on social media for a couple months. So please, I will try and respond to everybody if you send me a message, but it may take some time. So please bear with me, but I eventually get through them. I went through a couple there and I'm like, oh, they've been sitting there for a month and a half. So,
Yep. There we go. We got some applause in the crowd here. Wyatt, thank you very much for joining us here on your Tuesday evening. Look forward to hopefully meeting you one day, because I'm up your neck of the woods all the time on my way up towards North Bay or up even to Huntsville and stuff with some buddies up there. So,
well, by all means, we'll go for a paddle one day or something.
That would be incredible. All right, sir. I'm going to drop you into the basement, finish up the show, and I will see you in a few short moments. Thanks,
Thank
Wyatt.
you very much. Thanks.
Oops, sorry, didn't mean to cut him off short there. You know what? Hopefully everybody enjoyed tonight's show. I love having contestants from Alone on the show. It's always these people are you and me, man. They're out there and they're doing this stuff. They're taking it a little more extreme than what we do. But you know what? It takes a lot to do that. They put their bodies through some real struggles out there. And you know what? The fact to hear that Wyatt would do this again in a heartbeat, you know what? He's one tough mother, as they call him sometimes, right? That's good on him. Just want to remind everybody, next week we have James Olaf from Ontario Backcountry News. We will be chatting a bit about that there. Should be a good night. That'll be a Tuesday evening show at 7 o'clock from 7 till 9. If you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button below and maybe hit the thumbs up if you enjoyed tonight's show. It was a really fun time. I've been looking forward to this one for quite a while because, as I say, I was really pulling for Wyatt in this season of Alone. As you do, you gain kind of your favorites, and they're the ones you kind of root on. And for me, it always seems to be obviously the Ontario boys, right? Because or boys and girls, because we have had some female contestants from Ontario as well. But you know what? It's always a good thing. Once again, just passing on that tonight's show was also done in tribute to a good friend of ours, Sty North, who passed away this past week with his battles of cancer. Sty, thank you very much for everything that you've done for me and for my channel. We're going to miss you, buddy. With that being said, I hope everybody enjoyed tonight's show. We'll see you next week. And remember, keep the adventures alive. Talk to you next time.